सर्वेश्वर भगवान की जय, गंगा मैया की जय, भारत माता की जय, धरती माता की जय, हर हर महादेव।
ओम जय गंगे माता मैया, जय गंगे माता, जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनोवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। चंद्र से ज्योत तुम्हारी, जल निर्मल आता, मैया जल निर्मल आता। शरण पड़े जो तेरी, शरण पड़े जो तेरी, सो नर तर जाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। एक ही बार जो तेरी शरणागति आता, मैया शरणागति आता। यम के त्रास मिटा कर, यम के कष्ट मिटा कर, परम गति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। आरती मात तुम्हारी, जो जन नित गाता, मैया प्रेम सहित गाता। दास वही असज में, भक्त वही असज में, मुक्ति को पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, ओम जय गंगे माता, मैया जय गंगे माता। जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनोवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता। त्वमेव माता
च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव
बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या
द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। जय
राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय राधा रमण हरि बोल।
जय जय राधा रमण जय जय राधा रमण जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। जय जय राधा
जय जय राधा रमण जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। जय जय
राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण हरि बोल। जय राधा रमण हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण जय जय राधा रमण जय जय राधा
रमण हरि
पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
You mentioned time management, tongue management, and thought management briefly at the end of satsang. Can you speak more to what each of these is about? This is actually Pujya Swamiji's sutra for a happy life. Time management, tongue management, thought management. So time management is really very simple. How many of us would like to accomplish more in a day than we do? Anybody go to sleep with to-do lists that aren't quite done? Anybody else? Yeah, right? So we'd like to accomplish more. Time management is not about squeezing 31 hours out of a 24-hour day. It's not about that. It's not about some special app that's going to help you, do 5 things simultaneously. What it really means is having a timetable. Do I value time? How many of us waste time? Now, that doesn't mean that every single moment of our life has to be work. Absolutely, there should be play, there should be enjoyment. There obviously should be our spiritual recharging of our battery times. And how do I fit all of that in to a 24-hour-a-day schedule? Or if not, at least how do I fit it all into a 7-day-a-week schedule? So, okay, I may not necessarily get to everything every day. But in a week, my work time, my play time, my take care of my body time, whether it's yoga or walking or exercise, whatever we're doing. My spiritual recharging reconnection time. My time with my family time. But unless we schedule things properly, the days tend to slip through our hands. You get to the point where you're at the end of the day and you think, oh my God, where did the day go? And a lot of it goes in just getting distracted. And this has always been a case of human nature, but social media, computers has actually just made it worse. Because now you're trying to focus on something, and suddenly there's a beep, a buzz, a ring, whatever's happening, some kind of notification, and suddenly our attention goes there. They actually did a study in which they found that having your mobile phone, even if it's on silent and face down on the desk, if it's within arm's reach, within a couple of feet away, your productivity suffers significantly. That simply having it in your presence, again, even it's on silent, even it's face down on the desk, that somehow a portion of our brain is actually still there, compared to if people have to leave it at the front door. So this is getting us more and more distracted. Social media, oh, you've got a new, notification. So-and-so has liked your such and such, or has commented on your such and such, or, tagged you in such and such. And suddenly it's, oh, yeah, let me see. And there we are. There we go. And so there's a lot of tools. One really good tool, turn off all your notifications. I'm not saying don't go on social media. But go on it when you've decided you're going to go on it. Don't go on it because you got something that says somebody has done something to you. Schedule it in. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever amount of time you've decided. Schedule it. But turn off all of your notifications. Or turn them off from everyone who's not your child, your spouse. I mean, someone with whom there may be actually, an emergency situation that you don't want to miss. Otherwise, turn off everything. My phone, even just regular messages. My phone doesn't beep on text messages. It doesn't beep on WhatsApp messages. I pick it up periodically and see if I've got a text message. It doesn't beep. Otherwise, it's beeping all day long. And I figure if anything is really urgent, somebody's actually going to pick up the phone and call me. So there's all kinds of little easy tools. Make a timetable. What time are you going to get up? And then set an alarm and actually get up. My adopted daughter was here recently. She's in college, and was showing me her alarm on her phone that literally went something like 7, 7:05, 7:10, 7:15, 7:20, 7:25, and she had 5 minutes that went pretty much from like 7 to 10 a.m. And I said to her, "What is this? Because I had said to her, set an alarm to get up. She says, yeah, I do set an alarm. You want to see my alarms? And she said, I just turn them off one by one by one by one. Yeah, right? So we know her. So obviously this isn't a very effective way of getting up in the morning. Set one alarm. Don't play the snoozing game. This is a game we all play. You think, okay, I've really got to be up by 6:30. I'll set my alarm for 6:15 so that I have that sense of snoozing it until 6:30. And it gives us this kind of sort of internal pleasure of I've gotten more sleep. But actually you've gotten 15 minutes less sleep. And you've trained your brain. You've created a sanskara. We were talking last night about sanskaras, grooves in our psyche that says, I don't do anything on time. I hit the snooze button every day. And that's a sanskara that goes in. Now, you've played a game with your alarm clock, but that actually stays with you in the rest of your life. Instead of that, set the alarm for 6:30 instead of 6:15, and then get up. Whatever time you've actually got to get up, set one alarm for that time. Put it across the room if you need to. And then get up. Otherwise, what ends up happening is actually really detrimental to our brain. It's not about 10 minutes of sleep or even 2 hours of sleep. It's about what starts to happen in our brains. There's a term in psychology called cognitive dissonance. And what that means is that my thoughts and my actions need to be in concert. They need to align. Otherwise, it creates dissonance. It creates discomfort within me. So, for example, if I smoke cigarettes, but I know that smoking cigarettes is wrong, that's going to create discomfort in me. And so we do whatever we need to do to alleviate that discomfort. So first, I'm going to start to try to quit smoking. I'm going to try. Maybe I can't quit smoking. Slowly, something very interesting happens. Slowly, I start to say things like, well, anyway, it's not so bad for you. That's just propaganda of the, health department because they don't want to see these good companies prosper. And, my friend's grandmother lived to be 95 and she smoked 3 packs a day, right? She smoked into her coffin. We hear all kinds of stories because our brain, our thoughts now, if I can't change my actions to match my thoughts, I'm going to change my thoughts to match my actions. So I think cheating is really wrong. I'm having an affair on my spouse. I feel horrible about it. I'm overcome with guilt. I decide, forget it. Never going to see that other person again. But then again, I find myself in bed with that other person. Again, I feel horrible. I say, no, I've got to stop cheating, got to stop cheating. But if I find myself over and over again, back in the arms of the person I'm having an affair with, eventually what's going to happen is my brain is going to start to say, well, my husband isn't nice to me anyway. And, actually, I'm a much nicer person now that I'm having this affair. See, I used to yell at him all the time because I was so frustrated and annoyed. Now, I'm actually much nicer to him. So actually, it's kind of helping our marriage. You see the games our mind plays. And they play it because of this thing called cognitive dissonance, that it's really important for my mind and my thoughts to be in alignment. And I mention this when we talk about time management because, or with anything important to you in your life. If you decide, I'm going to get up earlier in the morning, I'm going to be sincere in my seva, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to stop eating meat, I'm going to stop taking drugs, whatever your thing is, and you don't do it, your entire mental process is going to change. And then you're going to go from being someone who thinks it's important to get up in the morning, who thinks it's important to meditate, who thinks it's important to be sincere in their seva, who thinks it's wrong to have affairs and do drugs and cheat. You're going to go from being that person into someone who thinks it's okay. Because of needing our actions and our thoughts to line up. So this is where it's so important. If you decide you're going to get up in the morning, so this is why we don't set unrealistic goals for ourselves. If you're used to getting up at 8, don't decide you're going to get up at 5 from tomorrow morning. You're setting yourself up for failure. And if you're committed to doing that, then at least go away for a 10-day meditation retreat where you're required to get up at 5 o'clock every day, where they actually come around with bells and wake you. Set something reasonable and then follow it. Because not only will you find that you're more effective, and at the end of the day you've actually accomplished a lot more, but you will find that your mind is much more your friend. As your actions line up with your thoughts, that discord settles. And there becomes an incredible amount of peace in the body. Not just from actually the new actions I'm doing. It's not just getting up in the morning that brings me the peace. It's that now I'm someone who does what I think is important. Instead of being someone who's lazy, someone who can't do it, I'm now someone who does do it. So that's where it's really important. Then, tongue management. So what we speak and what we eat. Both. Doesn't require that much elaboration. It's pretty self-explanatory. Think before you speak. You cannot take words back, unfortunately. Google has now come up with this great feature, right? For 30 seconds or something after you send an email, you can actually unsend it. Brand new feature. Great feature. Right? I mean, you send something, you realize, oh, I was supposed to attach that, I forgot to attach it. Or as it's going, you realize there's a typo. Undo, fix it. Or you realize that you've CC'd it to people that you didn't actually intend to CC it to, undo. Whatever it may be. But unfortunately, life isn't like that. You cannot undo what you've said. And so be really careful. What we speak, it's an energy into the world. Do you really want to put that energy out? And then, of course, what we eat. Are we eating in alignment with our values of peace? Are we eating meals that are the result of violence? Animals who have been killed. Animals whose breeding has caused climate change and environmental destruction. I mean, the meat industry, animal agriculture, which is the growing of cows and pigs and chickens for consumption, is the single greatest contributor to climate change. Single greatest contributor to deforestation of our rainforests. So even if on some level you are okay with violence to a chicken or a cow, are you okay with violence to the planet? Are you okay with violence to the future? Are you okay with violence to the starving children around the world? You know, 1 billion people, more than 1 billion people sleep hungry every night. And the amount of grain that goes into the production of 1 pound of beef is 16 times the amount that goes into the production of 1 pound of pasta or rice or bread. So every time you eat meat, you're literally saying, I deserve the food for 15 other people. Let them die because I want to eat meat. Because all of that grain gets cycled through, right? I mean, the grain is fed to the animals. That's how it works. Cows, chickens, pigs, we don't kill them on the first day of their life. We fatten them up for several years. And the vast majority of what they eat actually gets digested and pooped out. So you don't end up with a grain of meat, a pound of meat to a pound of grain that goes in. For every pound of meat that comes out, you've got to put in approximately 16 pounds of grain. But if you were making bread, or you were making rice, or you were making pasta, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Pound of grain, pound of bread. Pound of grain, pound of rice. Pound of grain, pound of pasta. So, are we okay with that violence? So, tongue management. And then, lastly, thought management. Thoughts, we were talking last night, thoughts are things. They actually go out into the world. There is an energy to your thoughts. They don't exist just in your skull. And they create. They create our actions. My hand does not just automatically rise up and slap someone. First, there's a thought. Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you? Bam! Without the thought of who the hell do you think you are? How dare you? I'm going to slap you. There's no slap. There's a thought that leads to that. There's a thought that leads to, I'm going to harm you. There's a thought that leads to, as we began, it's okay to cheat. It's okay to lie. It's okay to smoke. It's okay to do this. As my thoughts change, so do my actions change. There's no God, there's no afterlife. It's all about, he who dies with the most toys wins. Therefore, I'm going to just focus my life on making money. Well, that's a thought. It's a thought. It's led to now my actions, my career choices, and my entire destiny. Everything begins with a thought. The Holocaust began with a thought, an idea. 9/11 began a thought, an idea. India's independence began with Gandhi, a thought, an idea. So, what kind of thoughts are we going to have? Because that's what's going to create our entire lives. So if we can manage those 3 things, we're on a really good pathway to a really good life. Not just for ourselves, but that which we bring to the world. The suffering that we experience due to that which is happening to other people or other creatures or other species is actually very, very beautiful. And it's very beautiful because most of the time we really only experience suffering about what happens to me. I should be okay. You know, you hear about a plane crash, and the first thing we think is, oh my God, I hope I didn't know anybody on it. Right? So my friends and family should be okay. It could say, 347 people died. But if I'm sure that I didn't know any of those 347 people, I'm okay. Now, the problem with that is, it's our very separate, illusory existence. When you talk about experiencing suffering due to what's happening to other people, what it means is that you're breaking out of that illusion of individuality. So on the first part, that's really beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be, to feel sad. This is where we talk about compassion. Right? If I couldn't feel sad for another being, I could never experience compassion. Compassion is experiencing through a sense of oneness with you. If I don't experience a sense of oneness with you, I'm not going to experience compassion. I won't be able to feel empathy. I'll be stuck with just sympathy. Sympathy is, oh, you poor thing. Can I have a cup of tea? That's sympathy. Like my life is going to continue on. And, oh, you poor thing, I'm so sorry. In order to feel anything beyond that, I need to experience a sense of connection with you, a sense of oneness with you. And so to feel sad at what other people are going through is very beautiful. The problem, as you've said, is it makes us sad. And there is so much suffering in the world that the minute you open yourself to that, no matter where you look, turn on the news. Go to the news online. Read a newspaper. Walk through the streets of almost any city of the world. Go to the mountains. See where they're being deforested. It's everywhere. And so that sadness becomes absolutely overwhelming. And then we're stuck in a situation of either I have to push it away, or I'm going to just literally die of a broken heart, of a heart attack, of overwhelm, of grief. But there's actually a third option. Just as there is sadness in the world, so is there joy. Just as there are trees being cut down, so there are trees being planted. Just as there is death, so is there birth. Just as there is crime and violence, so is there love and selflessness and compassion. And rather than pushing away the experience of the world, which just brings us back into our boxed up illusion, stay open to the world. But stay open in a way where you're actually open to the whole world, not just to the part that's suffering. Because that's also a box. The world is darkness and light, night and day, dry seasons and rainy seasons. It's both. It's the sunrise and the sunset. It's the fire that's devastating a city, and it's the firemen giving their lives to save the people who live there. It's both. It's children dying of starvation, and it's all those people. working to help them. It's all those people in the world doing something to make a difference. And it's important as we open ourselves to the world that we open ourselves to the fullness of it. And yeah, there's suffering, and there's joy, and there's violence, and there's tenderness. There's a beautiful, beautiful story I heard a couple of weeks ago. I was in Pittsburgh in the United States, where Pujya Swamiji in the early 1980s had built the first Hindu Jain temple in the world. And so it's been sort of his community in America for many, many decades. And after we were in Toronto in Canada at the Parliament of Religions, we had a few days and went to Pittsburgh, and he came back to India. I stayed there for another few days. I had to be at the United Nations and stayed back in Pittsburgh. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to attend and address an event that was put on by the Indian community, the Hindu community, for the synagogue, the Tree of Life synagogue, where the shootings had taken place just 2 weeks prior. And at that event, I heard something really beautiful, which was that the shooter, after the shooting, had been injured in the altercation with the police. When the police had come, I mean, he had been shooting and then police come. I don't know the whole story exactly, which shots went where, but he ended up getting injured. He was taken to the hospital. And the doctor who operated on him was Dr. Cohen, a Jewish man. And so when we open our hearts to the suffering, that violence, we have to also open our hearts to that incredible beauty of people who are doing that work, of people who are able to see the divine. So keep yourself open. Do not shut it down. But when the suffering becomes too much, when it starts to feel overwhelming, just open yourself to some beauty. Watch flower petals open. Go to a soup kitchen, and instead of focusing on the faces of the homeless people who are in line to get the soup, focus on the faces of the people who have given up their evenings to serve them. Instead of focusing only on what's wrong, focus also on what's right. And that'll balance in you the experience of the openness to the world. So it's important to be open to the suffering, because that's what catalyzes action. That's what makes us work and serve in the world. But we also stay open to the beauty of the world we're serving. Where every day, despite what a mess of the earth we make, the sun rises. When every day, despite what we're doing to Ganga, she flows. And to stay open to that as well. Because that also teaches us how to live. So not only does it balance and heal the suffering in our own minds and hearts from what's happening in the world, but it gives us inspiration of how to live, how to be. Whether my inspiration comes from the flower opening its petals, or the tree giving its apples, or Ganga flowing, or the people working in a soup kitchen, whatever it may be. That's then where I get inspiration of how to live. So stay open to all of it. Explanation of formlessness. Formlessness in terms of the divine, I assume you mean. Yes. So, the concept of the divine as formless is a concept that the divine is everything. So if I say to you, what is the form of electricity? Does electricity have a form? No, right? I mean, right here in this room, we experience electricity as the light through this light, as the wind from these fans when it's hot and they're on, as the camera that's going, as my microphone that's working. That is how we know that electricity exists. When the electricity goes out, we know it. My mic stops working, the light goes out. But electricity itself doesn't have a form. It takes the form of what it goes through. Similarly, water. If I say to you, what's the form of water? Well, right here, the form of water is pretty cylindrical. Right? You could say it's got, a radius of about 1 inch. But that's not the form of water, it's the form of the glass. So, when we speak about the divine as being formless, it's not cannot take form. It's that the divine is infinite. And therefore it's in everything. The form of the divine is whatever you are seeing. And so the lineage for which the divine is formless is a lineage, a teaching, a school of what we call Advaita Vedanta. Okay? It's a non-dual. The dualists, the devotees, the bhaktis, it's me and God. And oh my God, I love you so much, right? I'm gonna sing to you, I'm gonna pray to you, I'm gonna perform your worship ceremony. Okay, that's a dualist path. The non-dualist, it's God is formless. Because there is nothing but God. It doesn't just mean, and this is an important distinction, it's not just a matter of one God, it's nothing but God. So it's not one God that exists somewhere. It's nothing but God. And so that's when we talk about formlessness. It means literally everything is God. So one way of thinking of it is you say, what's the form of the ocean? Well, the ocean doesn't have a form. We understand the ocean by the waves from the surface, unless you're a scuba diver, which, by the way, is our equivalent of a meditator, right? You go deep, you actually start to experience what it's all about. But from the surface, we see waves. But a wave isn't really the form of the ocean. It's just a form that has been taken for a very, very brief intersection of time and space. In the same way, this body is a form the divine has taken for a very, very brief intersection of time and space. This body is a form the divine has taken for a brief intersection of time and space. Our problem is we identify as the form. And so the formlessness doesn't deny that there is a form. They don't deny I have an arm. They don't deny this is a tree. It has roots, it has branches, it has apples hanging. But it says the wave is not the truth. The ocean is the truth. So this form is not the truth. The truth is God. So when they say there is nothing but God, it's not saying, people misunderstand it a lot of times when we say the world is an illusion. Well, not an illusion like an optical illusion, as in when you see those optical illusions and there it looks like there's water in the desert, but it's actually not water in the desert. It's actually just a game that the eyes play. Or do you see the old woman or the young girl, or in those games? It's not that type of illusion. It's not your eyes are playing tricks on you. It's illusion as in I have understood this as the truth. I have understood the wave as the ocean. No. That's the illusion. The illusion is to see the wave and understand some separate form. The highest truth of the wave is ocean. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beautiful, divine, amazing Buddhist teacher, says enlightenment is when the wave realizes its ocean. So it doesn't mean the wave is an optical illusion. It doesn't mean that there isn't actually a wave form at this intersection of time and space. But that's not the truth. The truth is ocean. So formlessness is that awareness that the highest truth is there is nothing but God. And so whether we say no form or every form, it's actually the same thing. You can go into it either way. All forms, no forms, same thing. Right? It's like if I have a glass of air, a glass jar of air, a sealed glass jar of air. Well, my glass jar breaks. What do I have? Right? I have air. Now, on the one hand, I have nothing, because I used to have a glass jar of air, and now I don't even have that. On the other hand, I have everything. Same thing. Neither is right, neither is wrong. Two ways of describing exactly the same phenomenon. The Buddhists tend to talk about nothingness, emptiness. The Hindus tend to talk about everythingness. But either way, we're talking about exactly the same thing. That same experience of